All right, the deal is done. The Patriots, well, loading up for 2026. Now, what could go wrong? We'll get to that on tonight's KevinMc Sports Hour. Welcome here on News Talk 99.7 FM and AM 630 WPRO 790 The Score. Yeah, the expected happened, really. A.J. Brown to New England is indeed done, confirmed not only by Adam Schefter and ESPN, but by the Patriots. Just received a little email in my little inbox. So a 2028 first-round pick, not next year. You got to wait till 2028. I like that part of it. A 2027 fifth-rounder, that always cracks me up. What's a fifth-rounder? I mean, as a rule, those people don't come close to making your team. And that's it. No Kayshon Boutte, no more picks. The Pats, now they only get back A.J. Brown, but he's a serious piece. And I'll put it this way. When we last saw the Patriots, they couldn't move the ball or score very much in a 29-13 loss in the Super Bowl to the Seahawks. It was a non-game because the Patriots offense had no bullets in that game anyways, after an outstanding season against a really shaky schedule. Drake May in the Super Bowl was a man without many options and a really bad offensive line. In the Super Bowl, just looked at the stats. Drake May's top targets in that game, numerically, were first Mac Hollins and second Pop Douglas. Okay? Well, 3 or more months later, and the Patriots have brought Drake May some new toys, A.J. Brown and free agent Romeo Doubs. And they still have Mac Hollins and Pop Douglas further down the depth chart, and Kyle Williams for that matter. That is a serious upgrade at wide receiver. Actually heard someone in the last hour or so say the Patriots will have the deepest wide receiver room in the AFC. I don't, Coach, but interesting. That you would be in the mix is a serious upgrade. Now, how is this all going to look? The piece of the mix that still concerns me, and it certainly should you, is that offensive line. They've had some free agent additions, another first-round pick, and Caleb Lomu. Obviously, that should help. Better help. All right, so who is A.J. Brown? Of course, if you follow football, you know A.J. Brown. But here are some stats. Interesting. First, he turns 29 this month. He was drafted in the second round by the Titans. Played for 3 years. Mike Vrabel was his coach. Think for all 3. Maybe not. Think so. He was eventually traded to the Eagles for a first and a third-round pick. So this guy has been traded twice for a lot of picks. 3-time Pro Bowl pick. Over 8,000 yards, 56 touchdowns, and 7 seasons. In those 7 years, by the way, he's gone over 1,000 yards receiving 6 times. Here's the question. Can we put A.J. Brown down for another 1,000-yard season this year and next? That would be a home run. Because windows on these guys are tight. They're small. This is the NFL. Not for long. Injuries, anything can happen. But if you give me an A.J. Brown at 1,000 yards for the next 2 years, not 4, not 5, with Drake May and his other, toys, I like the Patriots definitely to be in the playoffs and definitely be one of the better teams in the AFC. Busy day in the NFL. We'll look ahead to the NBA Finals tonight as well. We'll catch your reaction if you want to weigh in on the addition of A.J. Brown. It is official. 401-438-WPRO, 438-9776. Let's get started with tonight's 3 big hits. All right, there was another very big trade in the NFL today. The league's best defensive player, the Browns' Myles Garrett, is going to the L.A. Rams in exchange for pass rusher Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, 2028 second-rounder, 2029 third-rounder. That's a serious draft haul. Also in the NFL, the Giants are re-signing receiver Odell Beckham Jr., also adding Juju Smith-Schuster. Russell Wilson, who played some quarterback for the Giants last year, is retiring to work for CBS on its NFL Today pregame show. Football Hall of Famer, former Patriot head coach Raymond Berry has died. He was 93. Berry led the Pats to the franchise's first ever Super Bowl in 1985. It's finals week in the major winter sports. The Stanley Cup finals begin on Tuesday night. The Golden Knights are in Raleigh to take on the Hurricanes. The Knicks open the NBA Finals Wednesday at San Antonio. Hurricanes and Spurs open as the favorites. And in tennis legend Serena Williams has accepted a wild card invite to leave retirement and play doubles in next week's HSBC Championships on the grass at the Queen's Club in London. Serena not saying if that is a precursor to playing Wimbledon or any other event as of yet. So that'll be interesting, seeing Serena back out there. And seeing A.J. Brown. Rooch, what number is A.J. going to be wearing in Foxborough?
A.J. Brown has announced that he will be wearing number 1 in Foxborough as a return to the number he wore while at Ole Miss.
Perfect.
Yeah, he was 11 with the Eagles and the Titans, but he'll be going back to number 1.
And 11 was available in New England, I read earlier. So, number 1. What was Diggs?
Kyle Williams was going to change his number and then did 18, I think, something like that.
Okay, there you go.
There was something tied up there. But, it doesn't look like there's room on the roster for old Stephon Diggs at this point.
All right, so I give the Patriots a lot of credit here. I think they got a decent price. The contract is not a killer. As of now, the Pats owe Brown $1.3 million in this coming season, but have until the day before the first regular season game to decide to pick up $27.5 million option, which they will, obviously. They'll be able to spread that over the next 5 years, and it's roughly only 2 years guaranteed, so roughly $40 million guaranteed, right? That they'll have to worry about.
Yeah, that's what everyone has been reporting. I never trust any of these things, but people have been reporting that for months, right? Like, that was the reason why the Eagles needed to wait. This is what it was going to cost the Patriots. So, yeah, $20 million a year for 2 years. And then the rest of the contract is funny money that no one expects anyone to live up to. And the real question becomes whether or not the Patriots renegotiate and extend Brown, or how that situation works.
Yeah, and they won't. That's not the Patriot way. Again, short window, right, Rooch? I mean, this is a very good trade if we get a productive A.J. Brown for just the 2 years. And as you've been concerned about, is that, is everything in place to make another run to the Super Bowl? Well, offensively, they've made giant steps. I think we both have our, concerns about that offensive line. But, hey, A.J. Brown's a major pickup for sure.
Yeah, A.J. Brown is going to improve this team. There's no doubt about it. I've never loved the draft capital that you were going to have to pay to get a guy like this. I understand that's the price of doing business. I just wouldn't have gone that route. That being said, I like the fact that it's not a first-round pick. They're able to push it down the road enough for me where it's like, okay, this isn't the worst of the worst of things. They're able to spread this out, and hopefully, they're able to take advantage of the window, and those picks are back of the round anyway, which decreases their value even further. But yeah, this is the rock and the hard place you find yourself in if you're Ryan Cowden and Elliott Wolf and the Patriots front office is they know A.J. Brown is imperfect, and that's why he's available. Okay?
He has his issues.
Exactly.
Now, by the way, very different issues than Diggs. Diggs was heavy lifting off the field.
Yeah.
He's had legal troubles. This guy, he was a captain in Philadelphia.
Sure.
He didn't like that he wasn't getting the ball enough. He spoke about it. He was somewhat outspoken about it. But that's all football stuff.
Right.
I can deal with some football challenges. Goofballs off the field. That's a different option.
Yeah, I'm much more concerned, from a football standpoint with what you laid out earlier. You set the bar, 2,000-yard seasons. I'll take the under on that. Maybe not the total yardage, but on the two, if it's 1.5, the number of 1,000-yard seasons that A.J. Brown has over the next two, I would take the under. That's not necessarily a sign of him not being productive. That could be because, they're spreading it around. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But his age and, again, those 6 out of 7, you said, 1,000-yard seasons.
That's right.
Yeah, to imagine that that's going to be 8 out of 9, I just have a hard time believing that. And that's my beef with this deal from the jump is it's 2 years on paper, right? And then all the funny money. For me, you can really only guarantee the one because of his age and because of the history of players like him. Could he defy, what players with his historical track record have been able to do after 30? Absolutely. And you could point to, Mike Vrabel and the familiarity there with being able to help Brown power through and defy what some of his peers haven't been able to do. But that's what worries me is, really, if you're giving up those draft picks, that's why I've been saying I'd want a team that's really seriously thinking about the Super Bowl this year. And I guess the Patriots are, even though on paper there are still enough questions as to whether or not they'll be able to make it back there.
All right, good deal, bad deal. Here's ESPN's Dan Orlovsky.
It's a pretty significant dice roll out of New England. This is a very young football team. A football team that obviously off of last year, great chemistry, Mike Vrabel as the head coach, and so all arrows are pointing up. Bringing A.J. Brown in can disrupt that. It's bringing in a superstar talent, a notable player that has a history with the head coach because of their time in Tennessee, and it's taking a very valuable future asset early on in that draft and sitting there and saying, we're in the now mode. So it's a dice roll. That being said, I do think adding A.J. Brown gives them the deepest wide receiver core in the whole conference.
There you go. That's the guy who said the deepest wide receiver room in the AFC. We'll see about that. Now, could
the guy
you
who famously ran out the back of the end zone thinks that the Patriots have a great wide receiver room.
And can A.J. Brown, disrupt that group? I guess, but we watched the Patriots closer than anybody else. Last year, they had 14 wins, really, because the schedule was ridiculous, okay? Their offense was good. It was not great. Drake May had great offensive numbers. He was the second best player in the league. But they clearly needed more playmakers. I mean, that jumped through the TV screen on a weekly basis. This guy's a playmaker, and so is Romeo Doubs. Don't forget him. The combination of those two, that's really the key.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, again, coded in there with Orlovsky, and Dan Orlovsky does a great job.
No question.
But he did run out of the back of the end zone. So there's really...
You're going to hold that against him, aren't you?
Of course.
Yes.
I mean, his peers at ESPN hold it against him. Who would I be? But you're right. You talk about whether or not I like A.J. Brown and his health and things of that matter really don't matter. The Patriots think it's a good deal, so there's that. And in terms of that, and what I said before, and you talk about the money, oh no, we might have a diva at our number one wide receiver position. We might have a guy that, doesn't rub people the right way in the locker room.
Get in line,
the
right?
The price of doing business, right? It's like,
this is the NFL.
We don't want to pay a guy $30 million. We don't want him to potentially, have some opinions in the locker room. Oh, okay. Well, guess what? Tennis and golf are options that you could take up because then you'll only have to put up with you. But this is the NFL, and if you want a top-end wide receiver, they're not all Julian Edelman. They're not all going to be super thankful for their roster spot and things of that nature. This is just the price of doing business. And again, the fact that Vrabel has that familiarity, I think should take at least some of that edge off in terms of, that's kind of why you would think Brown is here, and maybe that'll help, his transition, help him adjust and fit, in the locker room the way they need him to.
Yeah, and hey, listen, they had no locker room issues last year in Vrabel's first year. Now it's time for year number 2, and Mike Reese from ESPN says Vrabel wanted A.J. Brown.
Mike Vrabel, having coached A.J. Brown for 3 years in Tennessee, a big part of this in leading to the conviction to give up the first-round pick in 2028. What I've heard from players, they are excited. Just last night, starting running back Ramondre Stevenson telling reporters, I think this would do a lot for us. So they've been anticipating this trade. And then I want to tell you what I saw at practice. The last time we laid eyes on this team on the field last week, I watched those wide receivers. And last year when you watched them, you saw Stephon Diggs leading them through the wide receiver drills. It was that alpha presence. I didn't see that type of presence with the group last week. Tomorrow, we're going to be here. All the reporters, A.J. Brown probably going to be here. I don't know if they'll practice, but that alpha is going to be back in that wide receiver room.
I wouldn't expect A.J. Brown to light up the locker room or the media. He did not speak to the media for big chunks of his time in Philly in the last couple of years. So he might be a little burned by that East Coast media, but yeah, no question. You see A.J. Brown, and I remember the Eagles came up to New England a couple years ago for one of those summer practices. He comes onto the field. I'm like, who's that guy? I mean, he looks like a player. And any kind of drills that Mike Reese and his pals are going to walk down there in Foxborough, they will not miss A.J. Brown. Well, now that's a team that's all in, the L.A. Rams. Rooch, are they the favorites now to win the Super Bowl, or is it still Seattle?
No, the Rams were the favorites before this, and now they're even bigger favorites. So they went from 8 to 1.
Dismissing the champion Seahawks? Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Rams were favored to beat the Seahawks in the NFC Championship. So, I figure the Rams, they went from 8 to 1 to 6 to 1 because they'd already added Trent McDuffie, another Pro Bowler, and now obviously Myles Garrett. They had a good defense, too. It's not like they had some terrible defense. So
for sure,
the Rams are definitely all in. And it's funny, the haul that they gave for Myles Garrett and the Rams, are known famously for dealing these draft picks. This is what they do. They don't care about draft picks. And I sort of wonder if the Patriots in this trade for A.J. Brown are sort of taking a page out of that book and giving trust to the front office. They'll make it work. It's like these picks aren't everything. You can find new picks. You can find ways to make it work other ways. I don't know if that's what the Patriots are up to, but it certainly worked out pretty well for the Rams.
Yeah, for all you draft gurus, you hope that the Patriots don't become the Rams, unless winning games is more important than the draft.
Yes.
I look at what the deal is with the Rams. So they no longer have a first in 2027, first and a third. They also don't have a second in 28. So that's of the top 6 picks in the next 2 drafts, they only have 3 left. So to your point, yeah, great players like a Myles Garrett. I wouldn't put A.J. Brown in Myles Garrett's class at all.
He's not, no.
But
the draft, the trade haul tells you all you need to know about that.
No question about it. Do you think they paid too much?
No, if for no other reason, I believe that they're good enough to make this work. It also sort of puts their drafting of Ty Simpson in a different light in terms of, they don't have those draft picks, but right around the time they'll be ready to reboot with Simpson when Stafford's gone, the decks will be clear and they'll be ready to rebuild around their new quarterback. And in the interim, the strategy I think that goes overlooked and that most GMs don't play into enough is the Rams are actually set up for 2 things to happen right now. Great success, obviously. They're all in with giving away all these draft picks, but they're also set up beautifully for a catastrophic failure. Because should this not work, they can get all those draft picks back, or at least enough of them to start their rebuild with Simpson early. So I think this is sort of a stroke of genius, but it really relies upon the fact that Les Snead, the GM with the Rams, believes he's smarter than almost everybody else in the room, and his track record suggests that he's right, much like Howie Roseman with the Eagles. I don't want to be on the other side of the table because they come out winners more often than not, and I think the Rams hit another home run here.
And, Myles Garrett obviously is, again, the best defensive player in football. You put him in the middle of that Rams defense wrecking machine. But their window is certainly very tight with Matthew Stafford re-signing at age 38 for this coming season. Good luck getting Ty Simpson ready even for next year. But if you can convince Stafford for another year after this, again, short windows. I really believe in that in the NFL. I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford will repeat as an MVP, but he's not taking a big slide back this year after what he did last year. And as far as the future, well, good for the Rams. Back to the Pats a little bit. Rooch, how do you think this affects what Josh McDaniels is able to throw out? We were somewhat critical of him last year with, I wouldn't say they're conservative play calling, but they're conservative offense. Again, neither Dobbs or A.J. Brown is a flyer. Kyle Williams is a flyer. Booty has shown that he can stretch the field. There might be too many cooks in the kitchen in that wide receiver room, but I'll be really interested to see how Josh can use that group.
Well, yeah, I would say that if this isn't exactly what Josh McDaniels wanted, then there's problems up top, right? With the because there's really no other reason to make these specific moves for Dobbs and Brown.
Right.
Like they didn't need to get. I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you have to settle for what the market provides, especially when it comes to the receiver position. But really, when it comes to any top tier talent in the NFL, but there were other players. Maybe not to Brown's caliber, but certainly when it comes to Dobbs, I would think that both Romeo Dobbs and A.J. Brown fit perfectly into some sort of plan that Josh McDaniels has for this offense. And really, we've seen it before. You can really, and again, you don't want to compare. It's not an apples-to-apples type situation, but a lot of the Randy Moss offense and things of that nature, those types of plays, that type of explosiveness over the top, that's what the Patriots are going to be looking for from A.J. Brown. So we know Josh McDaniels has done this type of thing before. He's done it before in New England. So he has those plays in his repertoire. It's just, to your point, is he going to bust them out? Because the conservative play calling has been a little ridiculous.
And what is A.J. Brown? I don't think he's a down-the-field, breaker as he gets older, but he should be able to be, I'm not saying, Devontae Adams type by any stretch, but Josh McDaniels has had some experience with some big-time wide receivers. You mentioned two of them. And here's another one. Again, how he fits in the Patriots in 2026. Certainly, we'll be watching as soon as, about 6 weeks when the Patriots get to training camp. 401-438-9776. Again, we'll take your football calls. Also tee up the NBA Finals next on the Kevin Mack Sports Hour. Certainly it was an unbelievable Game 7. Really enjoyed that one on Saturday night. The Spurs beating the Oklahoma City Thunder 111-103. Welcome back to the Kevin Mack Sports Hour here on WPRO and 790 The Score. Yeah, hey, not that it's all about me, Rooch, but I don't know. The Oklahoma City Thunder don't do a heck of a lot for me. And
not a big Lou Dort guy?
No, or Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
How about that guy?
Yeah, his career might be over.
It better not be. They owe him like $180 million. Well, they owe him a ridiculous amount of money for the next 4 or 5 years. They went all in after winning the title last year. By the way, it'll be a new NBA champion. I believe it's 6 years in a row now, which is pretty wild. Usually you get these, teams with the core, right? 2, 3 stars,
right,
and have a chance to get going, and that has not happened in the NBA.
No, people thought the Thunder were going to be that team, and I heard...
And they're not going away, but
they
didn't get it done.
They're not, but I heard a great comparison made that the Oklahoma City Thunder of last season, so the 2025 champion Oklahoma City Thunder, were the modern equivalent, and you'll appreciate this, K-Mac, of the 1995 Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
Right, where it was like they were knocking, they're the heir apparent, they won, they're going to win a ton more, and then Derek Jeter and the Yankees, or Victor Wembanyama in the Spurs sort of popped in. So, 6 years in a row, but, if anybody had a shot to string a few together, you would think it would be these San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, now, hey, maybe, you mean the Thunder. Now there's a chance that the Spurs.
No, the Spurs. I mean the Spurs.
Oh, now going forward.
Right,
sure,
like the Yankees, Jeter and the Yankees. Wembanyama would be Jeter in this comparison.
He certainly could be. And, Wembanyama on the stage at MSG in games 3 and 4 anyways will be something to watch.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
And very expensive. I was told by someone over the weekend, a New Yorker, that for the upcoming finals, not even knowing who they were playing, the worst seats in the house are about $4,000. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? Hey.
Well, if you want to sit near Tyler Kolek's friend Timothy Chalamet, then you're going to have to pay top dollar. That's just how this works.
That could be 6 figures.
Yeah, well,
not 4,000, more like $100,000.
We'll ask Dan York. He's going to be there.
No question.
Absolutely.
He knows. Isn't he on Chalamet's cell?
I would think so. Yeah,
no question.
He's on all sorts of guest lists.
But Wembanyama, clearly the dominant player in the series. He ends with 22. They make a lot of threes. When the Spurs make threes, they're very good. Well, good enough to be in the NBA Finals. So all these Celtic fans, Celtics, they take too many threes. Who took a lot of threes throughout this series and made a lot of them? The Spurs, 17 of 40 in Game 7. That trumps SGA's 35 points. Here's the NBA's MVP.
It was a failure. Like, I failed at my goal. Like, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. But through my experiences, I learned the most about myself, and I make the greatest amount of increases I have in my career when I fail at my goal and don't get what I want. And I look at this no different. I didn't get where I wanted to go this season. There's a reason for that. Now I have to look at that reason and try to make sure it never happens.
Yeah, especially when my running mate, Chet, is 1 of 2 with 4 points in a Game 7. Oh, I don't know what sports talk radio or the media in Oklahoma City is all about. They just care about the Sooners anyways. It's got to be brutal for that guy, right, Rooch?
Yeah, I would certainly think so. Again, and we played the clip off the top of Wembanyama dunking on Chet Holmgren. Yes. And if you haven't seen it yet, in Oklahoma City, I guarantee you that's what they're talking about on sports talk radio, is that dunk ended that guy. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of for how long, because it certainly ended him for that game. They were passing him the ball in that game in situations where they wanted him to create offense, and he was passing the ball right back. Like the kid in youth basketball who's too frightened. He's not ready yet. He's still building it up. And again, to your point, that's a guy they pay a lot of money. That's a guy who's an all-NBA type player, 18 points, 10 rebounds per game. That's a guy who's on a team where Jalen Williams, their number 2, is down. Just a very, very poor, borderline cowardly showing from Chet Holmgren. I'll say this, though, for the Celtics, from the Celtics standpoint, if you're a Celtics fan, watch the Spurs, and they did a great job, especially late in the game, in Game 7. They did it all series, though, against Oklahoma City and their great defense. Oklahoma City was pressuring them to the point where San Antonio would bring Victor Wembanyama out to center court to set screens for Steph Castle.
Right.
And that would create, one, great room for Castle to operate, or Fox. And number 2, it would create a lot of space for Victor Wembanyama to be able to roll and operate. And the Celtics should be looking to operate something like that with Jason Tatum in the Victor Wembanyama role. Mm-hmm. And instead of hoisting, just passing it to Tatum so he can dribble, drive, and hoist some step-back threes, make him more of a playmaker. We know he's got it in him, and with his size, he's capable of playing that role. The Celtics, all the threes, you're right. And when Julian Champagne's knocking them down for San Antonio, they're really tough to beat. Boston can continue to be tough to beat in that way. Just substitute Tatum for Wemby and Sam Hauser for Julian Champagnie.
Yep.
And you got to open up more space on the floor. I think Tatum is more capable of that than the Celtics have shown thus far.
No, in the screen and roll, you put Derek White or Peyton Pritchard in the role with Castle, and it's more of a two-man game off the top instead of isolation. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Knicks. Everyone who deals with the Spurs, like, what are you going to do about Wemby? Well, they have nobody to deal with Wemby. I think the best guy that they have to start off on Wemby, especially if he's going to play away from the basket as much as he did in the Oklahoma City game, is Mikal Bridges. Bridges at 6'9", Wemby's 7'4", pushing 7'5". But again, that height advantage isn't as much of a factor if he's going to handle the ball that much on the perimeter. I was surprised that he handled the ball as much as he did so far away from the basket. Now, he shot the 3 well in that series. And, hey, I'm going to give Victor Wembanyama 3-point shots. I'd like to defend him, contest him a little bit, but go right ahead, big boy, because around the rim against the Knicks, he should have an absolute field day. And I'll be curious how the Spurs make adjustments and utilize him a little closer to the basket.
Yeah, the Knicks will have Mitchell Robinson and his surgically repaired pinky in the Isaiah Hartenstein role that you just saw from Oklahoma City. So he'll be there to, sort of agitate.
Yeah.
But what'll be interesting is, that the play calling and the strategy I just mentioned where the Spurs, came out to half court to start their screen and roll game. And to your point, they're not going to have to do that against the Knicks. Yeah. The Knicks defense stinks.
I was going to say, Jalen Brunson is not going to pressure the ball. That's really not what he does.
Right. I'm not, this isn't me writing off the Knicks, okay, or anything like that. They're on a dream miracle run. That's great. But to this specific instance, into Wemby potentially being able to dominate in the paint, it wasn't all on him in that way last series because Oklahoma City was great at defense.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be all on him and the San Antonio Spurs coaching staff to make sure he gets tons of paint touches, particularly early in the game, because to your point, the Knicks are hapless to stop that. They have some options, like you said, but not any that are serious in terms of preventing San Antonio from establishing that whenever they feel like it.
How about the other side? I want Wemby to play defense, and he played defense against Oklahoma City. He was physical. He was in foul trouble a few games, which means he's trying hard. He loves to block shots. He really hates Chet Holmgren, by the way. That was interesting. I don't know if you saw that story.
Yeah.
He did have the big block in Game 7, but those two guys are roughly the same age and have competed against each other in international play for years, since they were like 17 years old. And, he's the 7-foot string bean American. Of course I want to crush him if I'm Wemby.
Well, speaking of...
not surprised. But now he's going to deal with Karl Anthony
That's
Towns,
what I'm saying.
who's
Speaking
a different cat. He just wants to bomb away, right?
Goofy Americans, although I think Towns technically hails from... I think he played Olympics for maybe some other country, but maybe in the islands there.
Okay.
But, oh, man, I have been looking forward to this. I said it, last round in preparation for a potential Spurs-Knicks showdown. Karl Anthony Towns attempting to deal with Victor Wembanyama is the storyline for me because Karl Anthony Towns has trouble dealing with gravity, right? So to attempt to deal with Victor Wembanyama, it could create for some comical moments, that's for sure.
Well, he's going to try to shoot three-pointers like the rest of the Knicks, and that brings me to the last point. The Knicks have to make threes in bushels, like 15 or more in any game that they think they have a chance to win. The problem is the Spurs can do it as well, and they have Wemby, and that's why the Spurs are the team that's favored. We'll get to this more tomorrow night, Rooch, but to win the series, the Spurs are minus 195, the Knicks plus 165. Are we surprised by those numbers? I thought the Knicks would actually be a little higher.
Yeah, well, it opened minus 220, San Antonio.
Wow.
The money coming in is almost exclusively on the Knicks, and the New York sports books are in for some real pain should the Knicks actually end up being the NBA champion this year. For instance, DraftKings, the DraftKings sportsbook that operates in New York, so throughout New York State, the money they have taken on the Knicks to win the championship is more than the money they have taken on all other teams combined to win the championship.
Sure.
So all the money in New York State is on the Knicks. And while that doesn't necessarily account for everything happening nationwide, that's a pretty big state. And so, yeah, this market hasn't been open all that long, but San Antonio already from minus 220 to in the minus 190 range.
All right, Stanley Cup finals are tomorrow night, Vegas at Carolina. We'll talk about that on tomorrow night's show.